which took away all the structure that I needed so much at this time. And because I have two full-time working parents and lost the security blanket that challenge provided me, um, I pretty much stayed at home by myself from morning until evening with nothing to do except ruminate on my own thoughts and all the circumstances. Um, it was uh, it was as if at this point that reality um, and the true awareness of just how bad my situation was fell on me like a ton of bricks. And and it's sad to say that this was actually the beginning, because the beginning of all this, because things started to get much worse. And in January of '05, I remember I was walking in the hallway of our home and noticed this hole in the wall. And the immense depression and anxiety and other chemical imbalances drove me to the border of hallucination, and to believe that something was going to come out of that wall and physically attack me. And yet at the same time, I knew that it wasn't real, and that just added to anxiety. Just built. I mean, it's so hard to explain because there were so many things going on. I felt like I was just spinning out of control, and even the greatest powers couldn't slow me down to reality. Over the course of the next few months, doctors tried to diagnose the mental illness and just kind of try to pinpoint the cause to whether it was from the injury or whether it was pre-existing. And and they prescribed me to a variety of antipsychotics like Risperdal, Zyprexa, Geodome, bipolar medications like lithium, and all sorts of different antidepressants and anxiety drugs. It was just like, it was ridiculous. And even the brightest of doctors that were treating me um, could not, that were trying to help me, couldn't properly treat me. They just couldn't figure out what the problem was. And nothing seemed to work to the degree that they expected it to work. They were about as lost as my family and I were. And the one thing that every medical professional could agree on was that I was psychotic. The most toxic and degrading of thoughts, attitudes, perspectives, outlooks, and delusion dominated me. I remember at one point screaming and falling to my knees, crying, because I couldn't stop the multiple sounds, noises, and images playing like a broken record in my head. Um, Even when I closed my eyes, I would see these terrifying animals and images attacking me. The absolutely immense levels of anxiety, depression, and fear would only provoke these effects. And even though I've told you a little bit about what it's like, I just want to reassure you that no sane individual, regardless of intellect or profession, will ever be able to understand the kind of pain and suffering that I've been through through this time. But my best way to describe it is by saying that if I ever go to hell, I will relive this period of my life. That's my version of it. And anyway, but by May or June, my family and I were desperate because we had tried so many different options of treatment, drugs, therapy, whatnot. Nothing really seemed to work. And my mother and my mother and father and Aaron had done everything they could to try and heal the illness or ease the suffering that I was going through, or but it came to no end. And right before it was agreed as a last measure to put me into a group home for the mentally ill, the doctors decided that they could put me in a hospital for 2 weeks to try to titrate my dosage and wean me off the baclofen pump. The doctor said that the chances of this actually working were less than 5%. But still, it was our last option. It truly was. But I can give you some good news now. Good news finally, because after 2 weeks in the hospital, I was cured in a number of ways. There were no more suicidal thoughts, crushing depression, anxiety, fear, delusions going on. I was just me, once more. I could finally be in a quiet room and hear nothing but the sound of air rushing in and out of my lungs. And no more racing thoughts, noise, or clamor driving me like, well, madness. And I could also close my eyes finally and see nothing terrifying, no images, nothing attacking me. It was the most peaceful and happiest feeling in the world after a half a year of all this stuff going on, to realize that I was finally normal. Being average had never been sweeter. It was just perfect. And I can tell you that from this experience, I gained this new level of compassion and empathy for the mentally ill on a level that many will never reach and will never understand. But anyway, it was really ironic that I suffered so much in the last 6 months, because something wonderful happened simultaneously. After I got out of the hospital in July, my cognitive functions had returned. I remember picking up the sports page of the Houston Chronicle one day, hoping that I could process and understand the content, but my hopes weren't too high, because every other time I tried, I pretty much failed, and then had to go just hoping that the next time it would be better. But by the time I finished the article, I realized that I got it, and I jumped to my feet. I was screaming and running across the house. Well, I mean, as far as I can run, but it was one of the happiest times I can think of. I wish I could have that kind of feeling just on call, and just bliss. I could also process conversations. My memory was vastly improved. All the mental faculties that I had lost returned. And once again, when I initially tried to write an essay for that history course I took, after a few months after the injury, I worked for weeks on a single essay and couldn't even write a lucid paragraph. I mean, but when I volunteered to pick back up the writing course just to see how far I could go and what I could do, I actually completed 22 essays and 500 definitions in 3 months, and made an A in the class. Against family and medical advice, I also simultaneously enrolled in community college and made A's in both those courses too. And after my success, I decided I wanted to go back to college to finish my education.